My name is Gemini Jones. I am an actress and a singer and a mum as well. I'm putting that there in my job title because it's definitely one of my jobs.
Hi, I'm Coral Neal. I'm an actress. I just act, really. That's literally what I do.
Cool. And I'm Shonay. I created a black actress. I brought these ladies together just to open the world to see what it means to be a black actress. And I wanted to share their stories and have everyone be part of it, really. Mm-hmm. So, what does it mean to you to be a black actress? I guess that's sort of where we're going to start.
Such a massive question, isn't it?
Such a big question.
Yeah, I think when you asked this, my answer, or part of my answer definitely was that I think it would be lovely to come to a point, I suppose, where we're just looked at as actresses, that we're going into jobs and we're not being employed only because we are black, but because, you know, we're the best person for the job, and it's not a character that is entirely linked to our identity and our culture. And those roles are obviously important and need to be there, but also I think real change happens when we are just the doctor, or we're just the, you know, the barrister, or the, you know, the maybe more non-stereotypical roles that might be that are out there. So I think that would be a place that would be, I think, feel really good to get to. And we are definitely on that. I think we're on that road already.
Yeah, definitely. I think that roles are definitely becoming less stereotypical, and characters are becoming more complex. But I think that there are certain people in the industry who are pushing that forward. But I mean, it still has ways to go though. But yeah, it would be nice to not sort of be the black character and feel like you have the whole weight of an entire people to somehow represent in what you're portraying.
For sure.
Cool. Well, I'm not a black actress, so it's for me. I think it's just about seeing black women on screen. I think it's important. I think it's important for us as women to see ourselves, and I think that you guys doing this it's moving everything forward for everyone. So that's kind of why I'm grateful and why I started the project as well, to just, you know, platform and say that, you know, everyone deserves fair representation. And I think the best way that we kind of relate to other people is when we see ourselves on TV, on stage, and that kind of thing, really.
Yeah, I definitely think I would have, you know, thought twice about becoming an actress if I hadn't seen black faces on screens, you know, black women, and, you know, some level of representation to look up to and to aspire for, like, you know, aspire to be similar to. But, you know, I think as a minority, I think you are scared to, you know, reach out and think, okay, well, is there a space for me? Will there be roles for me that I can relate to, or fit myself into and be authentic?
I remember being really young and going to the theatre, and probably even less so on like TV screens that you were seeing black performers, but I do remember seeing and it was black men actually more so. I think back into my mind of the shows that I saw as a youngster, so probably The Lion King. I remember Starlight Express, seeing that quite early doors, and there was a couple of black guys in there, and I was just like, yeah. I remember seeing Five Guys Named Mo quite early on when I was young, before I was acting, and being really inspired and thinking, oh, this could be really good. It's possible, you know. And I suppose in some ways, you know, if you are interested in whatever it is you're interested in life, if it is something that speaks to your heart and you want to do it, you will go for it. You'd hope, you know, that you'd go for it 100% regardless of what you're seeing out there. But it definitely helps, I think, if you're seeing people that are similar, that look like you, that say, oh goodness, I could possibly do this.
Yeah, because you ask all artists, really, you know, they have variations on why they are an artist, why they're an actor, and so on. But it's all pretty much the same. It's this idea that, you know, they were drawn to it, and they felt like, I can't not do this. I have to at least try. I have to see where it takes me and just like jump on that journey, because you want to tell those stories, and it not be about how you look necessarily, but about the humanity in that character, and in that story, and hoping that that will, you know, relate and resonate with other people. That's, I think, really ultimately that's the goal.
Cool. And Coral, you are championing with equity. Yeah. I suppose the representation behind the screen and basically sort of making sure that, you know, as black women and you know, black actors and actresses, that the care is being taken. You know, tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I'm kind of an accidental activist. I think it was because there was so much time because of COVID. You know, I had 3 jobs at that time that were forthcoming, and they all cancelled because of COVID-19, and we were asked to sit at home and wait and see. And I just was thinking over some of the experience I'd had on professional jobs and lead roles, and what could have been better, what sort of struggles did I experience. And one of the things that came up too often, I found, was there was an issue around hair and makeup. For me, it was predominantly hair. I remember distinctly being a lead in a job, and the hairstylist just had no idea, and she kind of just sort of said, okay, well, I don't know what I'm doing, but it's fine. And that just didn't sit right with me. You know, I felt really demoralized by that experience, and I just thought, well, I can't be the only artist, the only black artist that's had this. And you know, we're not even talking about the men and their experiences. You know, the number of times I haven't seen any sort of barbering tools or equipment for men, you just think, okay, well, it's definitely not a singular story. So I'm going to use my voice to sort of spearhead this, working with Equity and basically collaborating with them. Because incidentally, they had also a coffee morning talking about this, and they had no answers. You know, artists were saying, okay, well, what about these complaints around hair and makeup and this discrimination that we're experiencing? And they sort of said, we'll get back to you. And I just thought, that's not a good enough answer. We need to actually call it out and say, this is how bad it's been for me. Has anyone else got stories? And I knew that when I put that video out, that I wouldn't have the most horrific stories, because friends of mine who were in the industry had already told me worse stories than that. And so I think it's just, it's something that I think is essential, that needs to be addressed, and luckily people are taking notice, but I can't credit myself for why it's suddenly taken on a life of its own, really, but I think it's definitely got more to do with the Black Lives Matter movement, George Floyd, and everything around that. I definitely feel like people are ready to talk about it.
Yeah, timing is a big thing, isn't it? I was saying that earlier before we went live, that even when you shot a black actress in this portrait series, where we were back in 2019, and it feels like nothing much has sort of happened in there, and that nobody wanted to even listen to what you were trying to say with this shoot. And actually within this time, you know, now we've gone a year on, and because of timing, like you said, COVID, everything that's come to the forefront for a lot of people, and now it's like, oh, all of a sudden there are more eyes on them, people actually sitting up and taking notice of grievances that have been there probably for a very long time for people, or, you know, doors are now open or starting to open that maybe weren't before, you know, even up to just a year ago, maybe for you.
I think it's definitely been challenging to sort of get people to be interested in it and see that it's something that, you know, it's worthwhile talking about. And, you know, the response was, at the time, you know, everyone thought it was a great subject matter, and I think as black women we were really, really excited about it. I think as for the rest of us or the rest of the world, it was kind of like, well, what does it really matter?
Yeah.
And like you said, now that, you know, everyone's kind of stuck at home and there's nothing else for them to do, it's something that they can actually, you know, focus on and be like, okay, this is actually interesting, this is worthwhile, it's a subject that we need to talk about. Sorry guys, I'm just trying to keep an eye on it here as well.
It is definitely a topic, but it's so much broader than just our industry, because I mean, I know from lifetime ago when I was even working outside of the entertainment industry, that, you know, in corporate scenarios, you were finding women didn't feel comfortable wearing their hair natural, or even certain braided styles were frowned upon.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it relatable. They were thinking, you know, there's discrimination that Afro hair experiences that other hair textures just don't, because it doesn't fit the mold. It's not
the ideal, the Western standard,
Yeah.
is it? Yeah.
And you know, if you want to wear it naturally, you have to kind of give a reason, and you have to go above and beyond to make it satisfactory in the eyes of other people in terms of how they think it should look. And you know, it's almost as if a lot of people, I think, unfortunately sort of see Afro hair as a 70s style. And you think it's not a style, it's actually
It's the way that my hair grows out of my head.
It's what my hair does.
And there needs to be support for that. And I think the only reason that I've actually felt comfortable raising it as an issue is because in our industry, it is a professional part of the job. And so it needs to be managed in a professional way. It's not just me saying, oh, can you do my hair better? It's actually, no. I mean, the optics are everything. And so the department needs to know how to deal with that. And so it feels like it's okay to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in situations that I've been in theatre or in commercial work that I've done, it's always been a case of you just sort of do it yourself. Since my hair's been Afro, it's like, and I've felt more comfortable with that, which is, I think, very telling, isn't it? That I would rather, even on a professional job, I would probably prefer to go and say, I'll deal with my own hair because I know how to style it, and I know I'm going to walk away going, yeah, that's what it's supposed to look like, as opposed to someone having a little bit of a go and then I'm the one on camera going, this is just not right. That's the worst feeling in the world when we all had that coming out of a salon even, and you say, cut a little bit off, and they've cut all your hair off, and you're like, this is not what I asked for. Again, you know, that's multiplied by 1,000 if you're now trying to step on a set or something with a hairstyle or, you know, a look that you're just going, no, I could have absolutely done this better.
Keep talking, because we're live. There are a couple of things that I want to tweak, so I'm going to leave you guys talking, and I'm just going to tweak the cameras. Or actually, Celine, would you be able to tweak the cameras for me, just to so if you put both cameras, just to bring the exposure down a little bit. So
technical talk.
This is what you get with a live stream. This is what you so make it more. Because I've just noticed that you're slightly overexposed, and people are like, oh, you don't even know how to like black people.
We don't want that, guys.
Exactly. Like,
wow. Brilliant.
Like, you guys aren't, you know, whatever you're talking about. And also, I'm just going to check the sound again, because, you know. Oh, the sound is really bad. So I think let's bring our mics down a little bit lower.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
God, it's that wasted, isn't it?
I know.
There's about 500 of us in there.
No.
Not at all.
It almost sounds like two conversations running. We weren't even talking when she was saying that.
Sorry? I'm going to come over.
So maybe ask people what they're hearing.
I know.
No.
Actually, yeah. If you guys can, if anyone can say anything and let us know how the sound is for you.
Tell us what it sounds like to you guys.
So here, yeah. Yeah, it doesn't.
What is that?
And what is that other? I know what I'm going to do. Ooh. Hi guys, sorry. I'm going to turn this off. Yes. Is that better?
You'll have to go on that from that because it's our
Oops, sorry.
You can maybe like talk again and then when it comes through we can check it again. See how it's sounding.
So I'm going to do the playback. This is a... That sounds better.
That's better,
Yeah. Oh, we're so sorry everyone if you were hearing some madness before. Hopefully that is better. And there is going to be a playback, so that will hopefully sound a hell of a lot better. But yeah, back to where we were.
God, where were we?
Talking about hair.
Yeah, hair.
So,
So sorry everyone.
I think, I mean, it's interesting because, I mean, a lot of people came forward and responded with their various stories, and it was, I was fortunate enough to be able to go through people's individual stories and seeing what they said in the surveys and things, and obviously I can't disclose what those were specifically, but some were pretty awful, and, you know, to think that there was no support in that situation, and they knew to come back from that and to still put yourself forward as an artist. I feel like too often we do expect to sort of be pushed and pulled in certain ways and be moldable and be flexible and be uncomfortable while still doing our job and delivering, you know, the performance. And, you know, I think as artists we know that we have to sort of just put all that discomfort to the back, but it still impacts us. I mean, we're human.
Of course.
It's avoidable. And I just, you know, for everyone who took the time to fill out the survey and to, you know, share their stories, I think they deserve for the next job to be different. I think that's where I kind of hope it will go. The next job, eventually, we won't be hearing these stories, and you know, the conversation between hairstylists and artists will be totally different in that chair. There might actually be one. You know, I think that's the goal. But I must admit, hairstylists, MUAs have been fantastic about it. This was never to bully or shame any particular department. It was just to raise awareness and to hopefully, you know, call to actions and change. And of all the hairstylists I've spoken to, they've really come forward and said, look, actually, you know, I wanted the training, I just didn't receive it.
Yeah, so the problem, as you see, is just higher up.
Absolutely,
The hierarchy.
Absolutely, and in the education bodies and things like that, where they get trained for, you know, several months to a year, you know, if you're being told that you have all the skills you need, so, you know, now go forth, these should be included and as a mandatory part of curriculums, and it's just not at the moment. And I think that's the main problem.
Yeah, from education. Yeah.
And what do you feel like has been, I suppose, do you have a specific instance that really stood out to you that you thought that, okay, this is enough, this really needs to change now?
I mean, for me, it was definitely when I was a lead in a commercial, and I was, you know, expecting there to be a certain level of professionalism. They knew I was coming, you know, they get the head start, they get the, you know, you go through rounds of recalls. I booked that job, there'd been no complications, and I went to that job, and on the day, I foolishly, I don't know if I should or shouldn't say that, but foolishly I didn't bring like a range of hairstyling products and tools and things, because I thought, naively, I thought I wouldn't need them.
Yeah, you wouldn't, like you said, should you be thinking, I've got to literally leave my house with all of my tools to do my own hair on a professional job? You know, you're coming to do your part of the job. everybody else should be coming to do theirs
Yeah.
as best they can as well. Like you said, it's not a surprise who turns up on that day. Everybody knows in advance who they're dealing with.
Yeah.
Whether that's the same as like a stylist rocking up and being like, well, oh, I've only bought clothes for the women. There's some men on this shoot. It should be exactly,
This is
we've
it.
come prepared.
And
So
as I got into the chair, I sort of, my hairstylist sort of just said, I don't know what to do with your hair.
okay.
And, we had very little time. We had maybe half an hour to play with to do everything. And she kind of just sort of threw something together. And in the back of my mind, I was sort of like kicking myself because I was like, why didn't you bring some stuff? And shouldn't you maybe you should have told her ahead of time, maybe you should have told production what you needed. Was it my fault or was it hers? And whilst I still don't blame her for what happened, I do think that because there was never a conversation, it was just never thought of.
Yeah.
And I came away feeling like I remember having to compose myself, thinking, gosh, I don't want to look silly, but there's no time left, so I have to just suck it up and deal with it.
Mhm.
And I came back from that job after it was a couple of days shooting, and I thought, that wasn't right.
Yeah, I don't want that
should
to
never
happen
have
again.
happened.
Yeah.
Because comparatively, other cast members had everything. Everything was ready. Everything was there for them. The only thing they could possibly not like is personal preference on, maybe a shade of lipstick or something like that. And you just think, my problems weren't that small.
I've been lucky, maybe. I suppose the theatre shows that I have done, a few of them have been, have had a black cast in them. So I suppose there's been maybe a bit more thought behind them on specific shows because there was like I did Hairspray, so therefore there's a whole black cast in there but everything there is wigged anyway. So no one was having to really deal with my own natural hair anyway. That was put underneath a wig. And in Lion King, that was lovely. That was a lovely experience in the sense that the vast majority of the cast is non-white, so there is provision made in that sense. That's a positive thing. But generally, like you said, I think when I've done commercial jobs or anything else like that, I think I go fully expecting to, definitely with my hair, do it myself and go thinking I'm just going to take stuff just in case, so that you're not left short. But like you said, we shouldn't have to be thinking I've got to leave with a suitcase full of things just in case the person doesn't really know what to do with my hair.
Yeah, I thought this is like the first level. What about when you're on something for a long period of time? What about when you're sort of with this team day in, day out for weeks, months, however long? Are you expected to just
constantly do your
own hair and makeup in some cases?
And I suppose it's kind of bigger, it speaks to the bigger issue of how black casts are treated and, being visible and being understood that it's not just about hair, it's that's a symptom of the fact that we're just not being represented across the board, and it's about kind of being sympathetic and understanding that there are different issues, and the more representation you have both on screen and behind screen, that it means that these things aren't as much of an issue. And I mean, I suppose it's speaking to how do you kind of keep going when you know that actually the space hasn't really been made for you?
It's a hard question, isn't it?
You kind of, I feel like with most things that are uncomfortable truths, you have to sort of rise above it and push through it, not really allow it to distract you. But of course it does at times, it gets to you. I think that Afro hair as a hair texture it divides people at such a contentious point, because some people, I've heard from talking to hairstylists, some hairstylists want it to just go away as a trend. And, that's hard to hear. It's like, well, it's not going to just go away. So, yeah, I suppose you have to be professional, first and foremost, and try and have a conversation that is respectful whilst also not diminishing your importance or the need for it, and saying, well, eventually this is going to have to be addressed.
And I think the fact that it is just out there and is a conversation, I think personally, even for me, times before where I may not have said something, I feel like absolutely now I would say something if I felt like I wasn't happy with the situation, or I wasn't comfortable, I felt like I wasn't being provided for in a way, that I would speak up, because I think that, like, isn't it, until it's brought to the forefront and you feel like you're on your own, you feel like this might be the only, you're the only person, but now we know that that's not the case, really.
Yeah.
And that does, I think, give you that strength to go, okay, yeah, I've got the job, I'm doing it. You've obviously booked me because you like me, you want me there. So if you don't feel that it's, you're being provided for in a good enough way, then that hopefully this will make people say, okay, yeah, I feel strong enough and brave enough to say, yeah, no, this isn't right. I was pleasantly surprised. I've not too long done a commercial job, and it was a white MUA, and she was fantastic. Yeah. And she opened up her bag. There was Cantu in there. There was black hair products. There was a magic sponge. There was all sorts in there, and I was like, yes, my girl, because that's it. You know who you're working with. You know what my hair looks like, and I felt in total safe hands, which is lovely. It's possible. It's not a big deal.
Veteran actors have been saying, who've been in theatre, film, TV, and they've said, it's just the peace of mind of knowing, okay, maybe I can actually take this extra time that I have, this window of time, to maybe line run, or just prepare, to center myself before I'm about to start. And it's things that, as an actor, you as the department for yourself know you have to do. And so you allocate that time as and when you can around all the other departments. But when you know that you don't have that time, it is stressful. So but it makes a huge difference.
And how do you feel? One thing I definitely want to touch on is that we're seeing more different black women play different roles. And do you feel like that is really changing in terms of, as we mentioned that we're seeing more black characters on like adverts and things. Do you feel like there has been a huge change, or do you feel like it's kind of just a little bit lip service to?
No, I feel like a change is happening. I feel like a change was already, I suppose, in some ways. There was representation there at some level before, and it's ramping up now. We can say it's tokenistic, we could say, but it's got to start from somewhere. It might feel totally saturated now because obviously everything that you're seeing and hearing is people really trying to make an effort to be inclusive. But it has to start somewhere, like we were saying earlier, like we're seeing it on screen. That hopefully slowly filters its way back, so that there's people behind screen also that are, there's a diverse set of people behind screen, and it's something that doesn't feel like it's a fad, that it's just going to kind of then slowly go back to what it was before, that it does now, that there is representation and the roles are varied. And I mean, I feel like it. I shot an episode of EastEnders a little while ago, and when the casting came in, it came from a casting for diversity, and the title of this person was to do with inclusive casting, which I was like, okay, well, some effort, there we go, that's something that's behind scene that's been made, that we're seeing a diverse group of people for this role.
This is it. I think that's the proof is in the text, literally, which comes through with the breakdown, that you can see as the artist from your agent, that it says, diverse options, please, for the role. And so I think casting directors and productions are thinking, okay, well, does it have to be a white character? Can it be a diverse person? And you can see that. And so now, I think more so than ever, despite COVID-19, there's a lot of work, and there's a lot of casting that's going out to black actors. I mean, I've seen a lot more.
I personally feel like that's happening for me as someone that's kind of sort of, I suppose, maybe in a bit of a transition, coming from theatre and trying to work more in TV and film. I feel like that's happening for me, that I'm being seen for things that don't feel colour specific, that don't feel like it's for a black character, which is ultimately, like I said at the beginning, that's where we want to get to. We're being seen.
So you're getting, it just naturally you're getting to play with more and diverse characters in terms of the personality, as opposed to looking a certain way. And you kind of, I suppose as an actor, you don't want that to be the only thing that they are focused on. That shouldn't be the deciding.
No, it shouldn't, and it shouldn't even, and it shouldn't be the way we live our lives either. I feel like you're not. you know,
Gemma the
yes,
black
yeah,
person.
Gemma the black girl. Like,
Yeah.
I'm Gemma, I'm mum, I'm my age, I am where I come from, you know, my heritage. You know, you're so many different things. So you don't want to be walking in there and, you know, just the colour of your skin be the only thing that is defining you. And I don't think I've ever lived my life in that way. And I suppose in being in a country that's predominantly white, I don't know, some people that can happen, I think. You feel very much the other. But again, I suppose it's perception. It's how, again, you see yourself and how you choose also to walk through the world. So I suppose it's only when certain things, like we're saying, maybe about hair, on something that is quite distinctively different, that you're made to kind of feel like, oh my goodness, I feel different now. Sometimes it's not even you that does feel that way until somebody else makes you feel like, oh goodness, I didn't even think for a second that I should be worrying about bringing something, you know. Or you walked in there thinking I shouldn't have to be walking with my things. And then until you were in the situation, you're like, oh my goodness, I've not been provided for here, you know. So, yeah, it's...
And being a working mum as well, I suppose, how does that influence you being an actress?
It's crazy. I'm hanging on by a thread, guys. No, not really. It's crazy. It's change. But I don't know. I think in many ways it is... we're very used to, I think, as being actresses, you're rolling with the punches. You are, you know what's happening for a few months one time. The next time you're like, I don't know what's going on for the next few months. And motherhood's very much like that. So I feel like I was quite well equipped for it. When I first had my baby, he's 3.5 now, he's not a baby. I felt just like I was out of work. It didn't, maternity felt just like, oh, this is just some downtime. I'm not in work at the moment.
Did you take a break, or did you just sort
Not
of
really.
let it? Okay. Wow.
Not really. I mean, I said to myself I didn't want to. I had come out of long contracts in theatre, so I'd said to myself, that was the one thing I said, okay, at the moment now, I won't say yes to anything long running. But I was on a film set, I think 3 months after I was on a film set, I think three months after having him. Oh, I think it was, 3 odd months, and expressing milk in the trailer and all sorts. I just kept it moving because opportunities came up and I was like, I'm not going to say no to that because he was a good baby and I've got a lot of family and support around me. So, but at the same time, it's a real hard one because it's another thing I think you're contesting and a whole nother issue. It's now our industry again, it's probably lagging behind with providing enough support for families, which is ridiculous in the sense that so many people out there are parents that work in this industry that's really unforgiving, especially I think in theatre, that is all so consuming, that is 6 days a week, that is, it's hard, it's long, you have 1 day off a week, it's relentless, and you're doing that again and again and again for weeks. If you're in a long contract, that could be a year. So I feel like it is lagging behind in many ways. I remember reading maybe a year ago, if not more, it was when 42nd Street, I want to say, was on, and I'd heard for the first time, I think they'd done like a job share with an ensemble member that had had a child, and she was able to job share. But that was the first time I'd ever read anything in terms that they were happy to do a job share. But things like that should be should be just a bit more normalised.
It's interesting because of COVID-19, there's been an upswing in complaints actually to unions around discrimination against pregnant artists, saying they're being overlooked for jobs because they're known to be pregnant, and you just think, well,
is that because of a risk of COVID, or is it just?
I mean, there's probably an element of that going on, but they're no more or less at risk than someone else who's booking that job who's not pregnant. But I think it's this. It's awkward. It's an awkward thing to have to juggle, and if something were to go wrong, they're not just responsible for one person; they're responsible for two. And I think it's also just the way our industry looks at pregnant women. Yeah,
and I mean, as much as I'm saying, on the whole, I think the industry definitely needs to come up. Again, my experiences have been quite nice. When I was pregnant with my son, I was in the show already, so I was doing Curious, and actually they were fantastic with me. They was just really well, just took care of me inside the show. I was able to stay. I had a lovely pregnancy, so I stayed till I was 36 weeks gone in the show, and my maternity cover was brought in to do there was a lot of heavy lifting in there, so she was brought in to do the heavy stuff that I couldn't do and shouldn't do anymore, and I was still able to do all my acting scenes, which was great. So I was taking really good care. And actually, I went back and did Curious after having him, and even that was lovely, because the director at the time, Katie Rudd, she had not too long had a baby herself. So it was, again, so nice to see on the other side of the table, there was somebody there that was a mum, working mum. I remember going into the audition for it because I hadn't met Katie before. I had to, which happens just so much, phone my friends to say, oh, I've got my child, can you look after my baby while I go and audition for something? And one of my really good friends did come, so she was wheeling him around outside. I stepped into the audition, and Katie was in the same position. Her mum was literally outside with her baby doing the same thing. So I was like, yeah, this is so nice. And also through rehearsal, her mum would come and bring the bubba. It was just lovely, nice to see that, you know, slowly, you know,
this is why diversity is so important.
Yeah.
It's not to sound you out or be a token or raise a card and all that rubbish. I think it's because of there naturally is diversity of thought. People get it. And if you're not the person who gets it, someone else in the room will get it, because they've experienced that,
That's
whether
it.
they be male, female, of whatever minority, you know, whatever ethnicity, they understand what it's like, and they can then have that discussion with you, or at least make some sort of contingency plan for you. But when there is a lack of diversity, so many balls just get dropped. And so many, you just hear no, because they think, they panic.
Panic.
They think,
it's panic, isn't it? It's panic. It's panic.
We can deal with this. I can't budget for this, or I don't know what's best for you, so I'm just going to say no.
No, yeah.
Another subject, I suppose, that I wanted to touch on as well, and, you know, from as a viewer of, you know, the arts and, you know, things like film and stage, and basically the argument that as creators, black creators in the UK, we have to go to the US to kind of find the roles that should be here. I mean, you know, what would you say to that? And you know, like, we've got some amazing actresses who are doing amazing stuff abroad, and you know, and I think they're kind of almost being ambassadors for black British talent.
So in some ways you can say, you know, but them to get the platform and that they've got, they felt that they've had to go to the States in order to rise to that level. And it's true, I suppose, I mean, we're a smaller country, aren't we? I mean, the levels,
and
you know.
I think that the UK has this love affair with, like, the royal family and this whole kind of, that sort of image of Britain. And that image of Britain is very small. It's not very diverse. So you do see a lot of, I suppose, dated kind of
ideas,
era type
things
coming out of TV and film, and in theatre. I mean, you could probably talk on this better than I can, but it's often, you know, they repeat the same kind of things, and that means that you never get diversity. I mean, sometimes when they do break out, I think there was a Romeo and Juliet recently with an Asian Romeo, and that caused uproar, and there was a lot of very un-PC reviews left about that, and you think people they're not willing to change, they're not receptive to it, because we know what we're good at, we know what people want from this small island, and in America I think they just have such a wealth of diversity, and yes, it's a big country, there's a lot more people to cater to, I think, and so there was a need for it, there was a want for it.
Even though it might be a minority, it will be a bigger minority, you know. So like you said, if it's a black network putting that on, you know, you've got the audience right there and then, haven't you? Whereas for here, if we're the minority and you're going through just one channel, you know, or one of very few channels, you know, the likelihood of your story then coming out, I suppose, you know, as an important one is. So yeah, I think that probably still remains to be true, really. I think that depending on the level of success that you see for yourself or want, some people probably still do feel like they need to go abroad to really make it big, as it were.
Well, no, you immediately hear from, you know, actors saying, oh, there's just, they get more castings because there's just more being filmed. And then, naturally again, the range of roles that they get to experience and be considered for, because they are even on the table to be performed, they you know, they get an opportunity at that, and then they are successful because I suppose they like us out there, and we can do an all right American accent most of the time.
And I suppose for me, it's kind of seeing. I want to see the roles, those American roles, or those types of diverse roles here in the UK. As much as I enjoy US television and its fantastic production values, but I want to see kind of unique British stories.
Of course.
And it's like who are the gatekeepers, and who do we challenge to make a difference in that sense?
I mean, if we had access to those gatekeepers,
right, it'd be great.
You'd be here with me.
Yeah, right. And I suppose you see, and it's like we've got the likes of Michaela Cole, flying that flag at the moment, and being able in those rooms now, and being able to have a fantastic show on BBC in prime time, TV that she's written, that she's in, that she's directed, that she's very much is hers, and that is so amazing to see. Like, I think whether you liked it or didn't like it, or whether it appealed to the masses or not, is such a big deal. And I've looked at a lot of things even online about that, and the way that it just emboldened so many people from so many different points of view, the subject matters that were being spoken about in that show. It's just, you're just like, yeah, this is why you need to see and hear different stories. There's someone, even if it is only a small percentage of people, it doesn't matter. Before that point, that group of people felt like they haven't been represented. And now they're going, yeah, man, I never thought, this is amazing. Like, it's so great to see myself there on, on screen. So, I mean, we hope that just continues. Like, we hope that we don't go backwards.
No,
so,
I don't think we will. I mean, it's definitely been brought up as an issue around, writers and the diversity amongst them, and who's writing these stories, and then who is signing off from these stories. And I think that, for me, I feel like they are the gatekeepers, because they are the tellers of the original tales. And then if they say that it has to be a specific look to a character, then as actors we don't really have a say
not
in
involved
that.
in that.
And I suppose, it's just this idea of people wanting and being willing to try something that's new, and not assume it will be a car crash.
Yeah.
So it's having those opportunities, being given the opportunity, and I don't know. I think it's moving in the right direction. Is all we can say. I think it will be slow coming, but it's definitely moving in the right direction. It gives me hope.
And what would you say to, I suppose, young actresses, black women who want to get into the field?
Do it. Just do
it. And also, I suppose as well, I think, your place, you absolutely deserve your place there, I think, where you've got it, and not feeling like you are lucky to have your job. I think that for one reason or another, I think we're in this industry, and when you get a job, you feel so like, oh my goodness, I've got this job, I'm so lucky, that you do feel like, I can't mess this up, I can't say anything if I feel, that something's not going my way. And I think that's the attitude, again, that needs to sort of change. It's like, you deserve to be there, and you also deserve to speak up if you feel like something isn't working or isn't sort of right for you. And like Carol said, if that's done in a professional way, and, then you should be able to say, I feel... And it's so funny, in theatre, I think we're even further behind. It was so interesting, I think, again, coming from me doing sort of musical theatre, which is what I've walked into this industry doing, and then moving into more straight acting, I think I was so pleasantly surprised. I did a show, and how the actors actually would speak up for themselves if they weren't happy with something. In musical theatre, I found that just never happened. Like, you just did what you were told, generally. And that doesn't matter what kind of age group of people there is a massive age range of people in there.
Was that because there was a really strict hierarchy kind of going on there?
Yeah, I wonder what the difference is, but there definitely felt like a difference to me. I remember it now, just feeling like, this actor is speaking up because he's not happy with I can't remember what it was to do with, maybe rehearsing or whatever it was. He was like, no, I'm just not, no, I've got a life, I can't do this, and that just felt like that was a movable thing. But it was so good to see that, you sort of feel like the bottom of the rung there sometimes, and it shouldn't be like that. I should be able to say if I'm not happy with something, And I think if you come into the industry young, you also don't feel like, this is my first job, I'm only 21 or whatever. You of course, you're only finding yourself there. How do you possibly, put my hand up and say, I'm not happy with this? But at some point, I think, as you grow older and you learn the industry more, you have to be willing to Yeah.
be confident enough
Yeah.
to speak out and
Use your
say,
voice.
Absolutely.
And I think if you really want to act and you really want to be a performer, I think that, I mean, I personally know that I can't imagine doing anything and loving anything as much as I love acting, and so I don't think you should deprive yourself of that, and I think you should give it your best shot, have a good go, and remember that you are an individual with something to offer, something different to offer.
That's right.
And that will always be true. And it's just a question of allowing the industry to evolve and being there when it does. That's what's important, because if you don't try, you won't be there. There's so many things that happen on this journey that you can't plan for, and opportunities will arise via various methods, and if you're willing to be brave enough to try and just be in that moment, be available for that, then I think that you can have a wonderful career.
It's the timing very much is everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I suppose, what do you guys see from the project? What do you envisage, and what do you kind of feel like? How do you feel like it could go further?
God, it would be lovely to see those pictures, like in big somewhere public for people to come and see. I think it was being a part of that project was so amazing, and really by chance that I was involved in it. Definitely, I was rehearsing in the same space that you worked in, and was asked to do it, and was like, oh, I might just see what this girl's saying. Okay, pictures, free pictures. Didn't know much about it, and honestly, was the most amazing day shooting, and so lovely to walk into a space which I don't think has ever happened to me, that it was Black female led, females, strong females, people doing bits in their industry, whether that was the stylist, the HMUA, whoever it was so lovely to spend a day with strong Black women, creating this shoot. So I mean, it would be lovely to see them, like you said, in a public space that people can come and see your beautiful work. Yeah,
we're working on it.
Yes.
We're working on it. And I think for me as well, it's just even the fact that I've taken photographs of Black actresses as a starting point, but I'm starting to see more Black women, being celebrated, and that was kind of the point of the project. It was because I was just literally just seeing us being stepped over. You wouldn't see someone being celebrated. Yes, we have the one or two people who kind of consistently on covers, but in terms of from the BAFTAs to the Oscars, it's there is only ever one. And so for me, it's just kind of like, well, if no one else is going to do it, then and I've got the opportunity to do it and the ability to do it. That was kind of why I did it, pretty much.
Brilliant.
I think that's where I want to see that that we acknowledge what we contribute to society, to the creative arts, and just across different sectors. And I feel like we're slightly overlooked, or well, no, not slightly, very much overlooked in that sense, and that's kind of the full pushing, trying to push that change.
Absolutely.
Be the change you want to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think any closing words, any.
I think it's such a. There's so many areas that you can go into talking about this. I think it's whatever it means to you. I think it shouldn't be defined by how you look. I think that this is what we need to get away from. Being Black isn't one thing. It doesn't look one way. It's not styled one way, and it doesn't have to fit into any other box. It's just it is. And that should be celebrated because it's beautiful. And diversity is beautiful.
Yeah. And this country is diverse, like we do live in a very multicultural,
Absolutely.
So the representation, seeing it feels necessary. It should be there. It should be more normal.
And what would you say to sort of any casting directors, or any director, any sort of, I suppose, the higher ups in the creative arts, like what can they do to make a difference?
Employ some, I think, just get some diversity. Get that diversity up in those upper levels. I think that's what's going to make the difference, that then filters down to us as actors trying to get the work as well.
Don't think you have all the answers. Ask questions and be challenge yourself with new opportunities, working with different people. And I mean, we're all as departments confined by various, other levels and other departments and things like that. But I think if we all have this mission of moving forward and broadening how we work and what that looks like, I don't think you can go wrong really.
Cool. Well, guys, time's up.
Wow.
Thank you so
Wow, that went so
quick. It went really quickly. So if you hang around, we are going to transition to some of the images from the exhibition. I really hope that you enjoyed this live talk, bar the slight technical difficulties. This is my first time ever doing this, so thank you for joining us. And definitely jump on Instagram and leave some comments. Jump on YouTube, leave some comments, and enjoy. Thank you.